Commander Jake Morrison looked at the big map floating in front of him. The map showed all the known space in the galaxy. It was made of light and turned slowly so everyone could see all sides. Next to him stood Zeph-97, an alien from the Zeltharian race. The alien had 6 arms and blue skin that changed colors when he felt different emotions. "Your people are very strange," Zeph-97 said in his clicking voice. A small machine translated his words into English. "Every other race in the galaxy has borders that make sense. They stop expanding when they hit dangerous space rocks, poisonous gas clouds, or dead zones where ships cannot fly safely." The alien pointed one of his arms at the section of the map marked Human Space. The border around human territory was perfectly round, like someone had drawn it with a compass. "But humans," he continued, "you have drawn a perfect circle around your space. This is impossible in nature. No race limits itself like this when they could expand further." Captain Lisa Parker walked over to them. She carried a cup of coffee that was still hot. The smell mixed with the recycled air of the ship. She had heard what the alien said and gave a small smile, but her eyes looked worried. "Maybe we are just good at drawing straight lines," she said. But even as she spoke, she knew it was not the real reason. Zeph-97's skin turned purple, which meant he was confused. "Captain Parker, I have been making maps for 300 years. I have traveled to every corner of the galaxy. I have seen how every race spreads out among the stars. They take more planets, build more cities, and claim more space until something stops them." He moved closer to the map and touched the human border with one of his arms. The border glowed brighter where he touched it. "Humans have fast ships. You can travel between stars quickly. You have strong weapons and smart people, but you refuse to go beyond this line. When our council asks why, your leaders always say the same thing. We have enough space for our needs." Morrison and Parker looked at each other without speaking. They both knew the truth. Every human who had high-level security clearance knew the truth. But the alien races in the Galactic Council did not know. They could not know, not yet, maybe not ever. The truth was too dangerous. The truth would change everything. "Some questions," Parker said slowly, "are better left without answers." Zeph-97's skin turned red now, which meant he was getting frustrated. "But this makes no sense. Beyond your border, our long-range sensors show rich planets full of resources. We see solar systems with rare metals and energy sources. Why do humans not want these things?" Morrison stepped forward. He was older than Parker and had been in space longer. His hair was gray and his face had lines from years of worry. "Zeph-97, has it ever occurred to you that maybe we have good reasons for staying inside our borders? What reasons could be so important that an entire race would limit itself?" Morrison was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the classified files locked away in the deepest vaults of Earth's government. Files that contained the real reason why humanity had drawn such careful borders around their space. Files that explained why human ships never ventured beyond that perfect circle, no matter how rich the prizes might be. "Some doors," Morrison said finally, "should never be opened." Parker finished her coffee and set the empty cup on a nearby table. Through the windows of the ship, they could see stars scattered across the darkness of space. Those stars looked peaceful and beautiful, but Parker knew better. She knew what waited in the darkness between them. "Zeph-97, she said, "how many races has your council discovered in the past 1,000 years?" The alien's skin shifted to green, which meant he was thinking. "Perhaps 50 races have joined the council. Maybe 20 more have been contacted but chose to remain independent." "Why do you ask?" "And how many of those races," Morrison asked, "have you lost contact with completely?" Now Zeph-97's skin turned pale blue. This was a color Morrison had never seen before, and it made him nervous. "Lost contact? I do not understand." Parker and Morrison exchanged another look. The alien was asking dangerous questions, getting close to truths that could destroy the peaceful existence of the council races. "Never mind," Parker said quickly. "Forget we asked." But Zeph-97 was too smart to let it go. His people were excellent at gathering information and solving puzzles. It was why they were the best map makers in the galaxy. "Wait," he said, his skin now flashing between several colors rapidly. "Are you saying that some races have disappeared? That they are no longer answering messages from the council?" Morrison felt a cold feeling in his stomach. They had said too much. The alien was putting pieces together that should remain scattered. "Captain Parker," Zeph-97 continued, I have access to the Council's complete communication records. I can check which races have stopped responding to our messages. I can see if there is a pattern. Don't, Morrison said sharply. Please don't look into that. Why not? What are you afraid I will find? Parker put her hand on the alien's shoulder. Even through his tough skin, she could feel him trembling with excitement and fear. Sef-97, she said gently. Some knowledge is dangerous. Some truths are too heavy for one person to carry. We are not trying to hide things from you to be mean. We are trying to protect you. Protect me from what? Morrison pointed at the map, at the perfect circle that marked the edge of human space. From learning why we really drew those borders, the alien stared at the map for a long time. His skin cycled through many colors as he thought. Finally, it settled on dark blue, which Morrison had learned meant deep concern. Commander Morrison, Captain Parker, Sef-97 said slowly, are you telling me that beyond human space lies something dangerous? Something that your people are protecting the rest of us from? Neither human answered directly. They could not. The truth was classified at the highest levels. The truth was that humanity was not hiding resources or territory from the other races. They were hiding something much worse. They were hiding the reason why the galactic map ended at human space. They were hiding what waited in the darkness beyond. And they were hiding the fact that humanity was the only thing standing between the peaceful council, races, and something that could destroy them all. Some questions, Parker repeated quietly, are better left without answers. Outside the ship, the stars continued their ancient dance, beautiful and distant. None of them showed any sign of the terrible secrets hidden in the empty spaces between them. Ambassador Carl Bennett sat in a chair made of smooth crystal. Across from him sat High Counselor Theiss, a being made of living crystal that sparkled in the light. They were in the main government building of the Galactic Council, high above a busy city where ships from many different worlds came and went. The meeting had started well. They talked about trade between humans and the crystal people called the Nexari. They discussed cultural exchanges and ways their people could work together. But then Theiss asked the question that Bennett had been dreading for months. Ambassador Bennett, Theiss said, her crystal body flashing with different colors as she spoke. The Council has been looking at requests from 17 different races. All of them want to explore the space next to your human space. Our survey ships report rich solar systems with valuable resources. They see no dangers or problems. But your government has asked us to keep these areas unexplored. Bennett picked up his cup of artificial coffee and took a slow sip. He needed time to think about his answer. Through the clear walls of the building, he could see the daily life of the Council city. Ships carrying diplomats, traders, and tourists moved between the tall buildings. Everyone seemed happy and peaceful. They had no idea what dangers waited beyond the edges of their known space. High Counselor, Bennett said carefully, humanity has always believed in responsible growth. We think the galaxy has enough explored territory to meet everyone's current needs. Theiss's crystal body pulsed with a deep red color. Bennett had learned that this meant she was doubtful about what he was saying. Come now, Ambassador, she said. The Vorkan have been watching those regions with their long-range sensors for decades. They report massive structures that appear and disappear. They see ships moving at speeds that should tear apart any known material. Bennett stopped drinking his coffee. This was new information, and it worried him greatly. The Council races were getting better at detecting things they should not detect. This continued. What I find most interesting is that these strange readings only appear when Council survey ships get close to the border of human space. It is almost as if someone is watching our border with your territory. Bennett set down his coffee cup and looked directly at the crystal being. High Counselor, some doors should not be opened, some questions should not be asked, and some territory should not be explored. Is that a threat, Ambassador? Bennett shook his head slowly. It is a kindness. Theiss's crystal body flashed bright yellow, which Bennett knew meant she was angry. Ambassador, the Council has been patient with human secrecy for many years. But our people are curious. They want to know what lies beyond your borders. They want to understand why humans limit themselves to such a small area of space. High Counselor, Bennett said, his voice becoming more serious. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe we have very good reasons for our behavior? What reasons could possibly justify such secrecy? Bennett stood up and walked to the crystal wall. Below them, the city continued its peaceful existence. Ships moved in orderly patterns between the buildings. People from different worlds worked together, traded together, and lived together in harmony. It was beautiful, and it was fragile. "Tell me," Bennett said without turning around, "how long has the Galactic Council existed?" "Nearly 2,000 years, This replied, confusion clear in her voice. "And in all that time has the Council ever encountered a problem it could not solve? A threat it could not overcome? No. The Council has brought peace and prosperity to hundreds of worlds. We have solved conflicts, shared technology, and created a golden age for many races." Bennett turned back to face her. "Then perhaps you should ask yourself why the galaxy has been so peaceful. Why in 2,000 years no great threats have emerged to challenge the Council." Thais was quiet for a long moment. Her crystal body cycled through several colors as she thought about his words. "Are you suggesting," she said slowly, "that humanity has been protecting the Council from threats we do not know about?" Bennett did not answer directly. He could not. The truth was classified at levels so high that only a few dozen humans in the entire galaxy knew the complete story. But he could see that Thais was beginning to understand that there was more to human behavior than simple territorial restrictions. "High Counselor," he said, "I want you to imagine something. Imagine that beyond the borders of your safe, peaceful space there are forces so powerful and so dangerous that even knowing about them could destroy everything you have built. What kind of forces? The kind that exist in the spaces between dimensions. The kind that can rewrite the laws of physics with a thought. The kind that view entire civilizations as we might view insects." Theis's crystal body turned completely white, which Bennett had never seen before. It seemed to indicate fear so deep that she could not process it properly. "You are speaking of theoretical threats," she said, but her voice was uncertain. "Am I?" Bennett asked. "High Counselor, what do you know about the history of space exploration before the Council was formed?" "Very little. Our records from that time are incomplete. That is because most of the races that existed before the Council were wiped out. Not by war or disease or natural disaster. They were wiped out because they explored too far and discovered things they should have left alone." Bennett walked back to his chair but did not sit down. He stood behind it, gripping the crystal surface with his hands. "Humanity was one of the last races to develop faster than light travel," he continued. "By the time we reached the stars, we found the ruins of dozens of civilizations. We found their abandoned cities, their dead ships, and their final messages. Do you know what those messages said?" Thais shook her head. "They said, 'Do not follow us into the deep. Do not look beyond the veil. Some knowledge destroys those who possess it.'" The room was silent except for the distant sound of city traffic below. Theis's crystal body had turned a pale blue color that Bennett could not interpret. "Ambassador," she said finally, "are you telling me that humanity has encountered these forces, these beings from beyond normal space?" Bennett was quiet for a long time. He thought about the classified reports locked away on Earth. Reports of first contact with entities that existed in 17 dimensions at once. Reports of machine intelligences that used entire star systems as calculation tools. Reports of things that had once been civilizations before they transcended physical existence and became something far worse. "High Counselor," he said at last, "some questions have answers that change everything. Some knowledge cannot be unknown once it is learned. Humanity has chosen to bear certain burdens so that races like yours can continue to live in peace." "What burdens?" "The burden of watching. The burden of guarding. The burden of standing between the light and the darkness." Thais stood up, her crystal body now flashing rapidly between many colors. "If this is true, if humanity is really protecting us from such threats, then why not tell the Council? Why not ask for help?" Bennett smiled sadly. "Because, High Counselor, the kind of help we need would require your people to become something they are not. It would require them to give up their innocence, their peace, and their simple view of the universe. It would require them to become guardians instead of explorers. And you think we are not capable of this?" "I think you are capable of it," Bennett said. "But I also think you deserve the choice. And part of that choice is not knowing what you would be choosing between until you are ready." He picked up his coffee cup again, though the coffee had grown cold. "High Counselor, humanity's borders are not drawn to keep us in. They are drawn to keep something else out, something that has been waiting in the darkness between the stars for a very long time." Outside the crystal walls, the peaceful city continued its daily rhythm, unaware that its safety depended on the vigilance of humans who had chosen to limit themselves so that others could remain free. Dr. Amy Foster stared at the readings on her computer screen. In 15 years of studying alien life and strange space phenomena, she had never seen anything like this. The numbers made no sense. The energy patterns were impossible. It was as if the empty space itself was alive and thinking. "Captain Sullivan," she called out from her station on the bridge of the UCS Explorer, "these energy readings do not match anything in our databases. The space around us is behaving in ways that should not be possible." Captain Ryan Sullivan stood near the front of the bridge, looking out at the stars through the main window. He was an older man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had volunteered to lead this joint mission between the Council races and humanity. But Dr. Foster was beginning to think he knew more about their destination than he had told them. "Dr. Foster," Sullivan said without turning around, "I need you to turn off all of our scanning equipment immediately. But Captain, we are here to study these systems. The Council sent us to gather information about the space beyond human territory. If we turn off our sensors, we cannot do our job, Doctor." Sullivan's voice became hard and commanding. "Turn off the sensors. Do it now." Dr. Foster had never heard the captain speak in such a tone. Something in his voice made her hands move to the control panel before her mind could object. As she began shutting down the scanning systems, she looked up at the main viewing screen. What she saw made her forget how to breathe. The empty space in front of their ship was changing. The stars seemed to bend and twist like light passing through water. The darkness between the stars began to shimmer and move. Then slowly something massive became visible. It was a ship, but calling it a ship was like calling an ocean a drop of water. The thing stretched for kilometers in every direction. Its hull was made of material so black that it seemed to absorb all light that touched it. The ship was so large that their own vessel could have fit inside it hundreds of times. Dr. Foster's hands shook as she finished turning off the last of their sensors. "Captain," she whispered, "what is that thing?" "That," Sullivan said quietly, "is why we drew the maps the way we did." Strange symbols and markings were visible on the hull of the massive ship. As it turned slightly, Dr. Foster could see weapon systems that made Council military technology look like children's toys. She also saw text written in English, TDF Leviathan, and below that, smaller words that made her blood turn cold. 7th Deep Fleet beyond the Veil Squadron. A voice suddenly filled their bridge through the communication system. The voice was clearly human, but it carried an authority that Dr. Foster had never heard before. "UCS Explorer, this is Admiral Kate Hudson of the Terran Deep Fleet. You are in violation of restricted space. Return to Council territory immediately." Dr. Foster looked at Captain Sullivan with wide eyes. "Captain, who is Admiral Hudson? What is the Terran Deep Fleet? I have never heard of these things." Sullivan was already working at the navigation controls, setting a course back toward Council space. "Dr. Foster, there are many things about humanity that are not in the public records. But this ship, this fleet, how is it possible? The Council has detailed records of all human military vessels. Nothing like this has ever been reported." The massive ship continued to turn, and Dr. Foster caught glimpses of its true size. She could see smaller ships attached to its hull, each one larger than the Explorer. She could see hangar bays that could house entire fleets. Most disturbing of all, she could see that this was not the only ship in the area. Other massive vessels were becoming visible as they dropped whatever technology had been hiding them. "Captain Sullivan," she said, her voice becoming higher with fear and confusion, "how many ships does humanity really have?" Sullivan finished entering their course and turned to look at her. His face was serious but also sad, as if he regretted that she had to see this. "Dr. Foster, that is not the right question to ask." "Then what is the right question?" Sullivan was quiet for a moment as their ship began to move away from the massive human fleet. Through the viewing screen they could see more ships becoming visible. Some were even larger than the Leviathan. Some had designs that seemed to defy the laws of physics. All of them carried the same markings. Terran Deep Fleet. "The right question," Sullivan said finally, "is what have we been protecting you from?" Dr. Foster felt dizzy. Nothing she was seeing made sense with what she knew about humanity. The humans in the Council were peaceful explorers and traders. They had modest military forces and seemed to have little interest in expansion or conquest. But these ships, this fleet, suggested something completely different. "Captain, I do not understand." If humanity has this kind of military power, why do you limit yourselves to such a small area of space? Why do you not claim more territory? Why do you not demand a larger voice in the council? Sullivan sat down in his captain's chair and looked very tired. Because, Dr. Foster, power brings responsibility. And some responsibilities are too heavy to share. What responsibilities? Sullivan pointed toward the viewing screen, where the human fleet was slowly disappearing back into whatever stealth technology had hidden them. The responsibility of standing guard. The responsibility of watching the boundaries between the known and the unknown. The responsibility of protecting people who are not ready to protect themselves. Protecting us from what? From things that exist in the spaces between normal space and other dimensions. From beings so advanced that they view our entire galaxy as we might view a small town. From knowledge that would destroy the peaceful existence of every council race. Dr. Foster sat down at her station, her legs suddenly too weak to support her. Are you saying that humanity is not really a member of the council? That you are something else entirely? We are human, Sullivan said. But we are also guardians. 200 years ago, we discovered faster-than-light travel and began exploring beyond our home system. What we found changed us forever. We learned that the universe is far more dangerous than any of the council races imagine. And you decided to protect us without telling us? Sullivan nodded. We decided that some people deserve to live in peace. We decided that some questions should not be asked, and some territories should not be explored. We decided to draw borders around the dangerous areas and stand watch, so that races like yours could continue to grow and thrive without fear. Dr. Foster looked at the readings from their brief encounter with the human fleet. Even with their sensors turned off, the ship's passive systems had recorded impossible energy signatures and technology that seemed to operate on principles beyond current understanding. Captain, she said quietly, what happens if the council learns about this? What happens if other races discover that humanity has been hiding this level of power and technology? Sullivan was quiet for a long time as they continued their journey back to council space. Finally he spoke, and his voice carried a weight that made Dr. Foster understand that she had stumbled onto secrets that could change the fate of the entire galaxy. Then we will have to make a choice, he said. Reveal the truth about what we are protecting everyone from, or watch as the council races make the same mistakes that destroyed dozens of civilizations before them. Through the viewing screen, the stars looked peaceful and normal again, but Dr. Foster now knew that appearance was deceiving. Somewhere in the darkness between those stars, humanity was standing guard against threats she could not imagine. Admiral Kate Hudson stood on the bridge of the TDF Leviathan, watching the council survey ship retreat toward safer space. Around her, the massive command center hummed with quiet activity as her crew worked at stations that monitored things most people could not imagine. The walls were covered with displays showing not just normal star charts, but readings of dimensional stability and reality distortion levels. Lieutenant Commander Pete Williams walked over from the weapons station. He was a young officer with dark hair and serious eyes that had seen too much for someone his age. Admiral, he reported, that is the third council ship to wander into restricted space this month. Our intelligence reports suggest they are getting more curious about what we are hiding. Hudson nodded, her eyes fixed on a holographic display that showed star charts overlaid with complex readings. To most people it would look like a normal map of space, but Hudson could see the truth. She could see the places where reality was thin, where other dimensions pressed against their own, where ancient things waited in the darkness. The council races are young, Pete, she said. They still think in terms of territory and resources. They do not understand that we are not guarding empty space. Should we increase patrols along the barrier? No. Too much activity will only draw more attention. Hudson turned to face her tactical officer. The man was older than Williams, with scars on his face that told stories of battles fought in places that officially did not exist. What is the status of the Watchers? She asked. All 37 monitoring stations report normal containment, the tactical officer replied. The entities beyond the veil remain dormant. Reality distortion is holding at acceptable levels. Hudson allowed herself a small smile. The council races saw humanity's border as the edge of their territory. They had no idea that it was actually the edge of stable reality itself. Beyond that boundary lay realms where the laws of physics became mere suggestions, where beings of impossible power slumbered in dimensions that human minds could barely comprehend. Humanity had found those regions 2 centuries ago, During their first experimental journeys faster than light, what they discovered there had changed everything. The human ships that returned brought back technology beyond imagination, but also knowledge of threats that could unravel the very fabric of existence. "Ma'am," William said quietly, moving closer so that other crew members could not hear. "What happens if the Council learns the truth?" Hudson was quiet for a long moment. She remembered reading the classified reports from humanity's first contact with the beings beyond the veil. Entities that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, machine intelligences that treated entire star systems as calculation tools, things that had once been civilizations before they transcended physical existence and became something far worse. Some of these beings were merely indifferent to three-dimensional life. Others were actively hostile, and a few were so alien that their very presence could drive normal minds to madness. "Then we will have to make a choice, Pete," she said finally. "Reveal that humanity has been serving as the galaxy's guardian for 200 years, or watch the Council species make the same mistakes we almost did." Through the viewing ports of the bridge, Hudson could see the stars that surrounded their position. To most people, they looked peaceful and beautiful. But Hudson knew better. Each point of light was carefully monitored by human technology to prevent certain wavelengths from penetrating deeper into normal space. Some frequencies of light could serve as signals to the sleeping entities beyond the veil. "Admiral," the communications officer called out suddenly, "we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Put it through." The main screen filled with the image of Fleet Admiral Nick Carter, a man whose face showed the weight of terrible knowledge. His expression was more serious than Hudson had ever seen it. "Kate," he said without any formal greeting, "we have got a problem. Long-range sensors have detected something stirring in Sector 7 Alpha. One of the sleepers is showing signs of awakening." Hudson felt her blood turn to ice. The sleepers were the reason humanity had voluntarily confined itself to a small sphere of space. They were ancient beings of immense power that existed in a state between dimensions, held in check only by humanity's careful monitoring and intervention. There were dozens of them scattered throughout the galaxy, each one powerful enough to reshape reality across vast distances. Most had been dormant for thousands of years, dreaming dreams that occasionally leaked into normal space as strange phenomena that scientists dismissed as unexplained energy readings. "How long do we have?" Hudson asked. "Best estimates suggest 6 months before full awakening." "Kate, if that thing wakes up completely..." Hudson did not need him to finish the sentence. She had read the reports from humanity's early encounters with awakened sleepers. A single fully conscious entity of that type had the power to rewrite the fundamental constants of physics across 1,000 light-year radius. It could turn every planet in a star system into pure energy, or compress entire solar systems into single points of impossible density. "What triggered the awakening?" she asked. Carter's face became even more grim. "A Zeltharian deep space mining operation. They were looking for rare metals in an asteroid field. They had no idea that the asteroids were actually fragments of a containment system that had been built millions of years ago." Hudson closed her eyes and tried to control her anger. This was exactly what humanity had been trying to prevent. The Council races were like children playing with nuclear weapons. They had no understanding of the forces they were messing with. "Understood, sir. The Deep Fleet stands ready." "Kate, I need you to understand something. If we fail to contain this sleeper, if it fully awakens and begins to transform local space, we will have no choice but to reveal the truth to the Council. They will need to know what they are facing." Hudson looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These were some of the finest human beings in the galaxy, people who had dedicated their lives to protecting others from threats those others could not imagine. Many of them had families in Council space, living peaceful lives because these brave souls stood watch in the darkness. "Admiral Carter," she said, "what about the other sleepers? If we wake one of them up to fight this one, will that trigger a cascade effect? We do not know. That is why we need to try conventional containment first. Kate, I am authorizing you to use any methods necessary. Protocol 7 is now in effect." Hudson felt a chill run down her spine. Protocol 7 meant using humanity's most advanced and dangerous technology. It meant revealing capabilities that had been kept secret even from most humans. It meant taking risks that could expose their guardian role to the entire galaxy. "Understood, sir. We will not let you down." After the transmission ended, Hudson stood quietly for several minutes. Around her, the bridge crew continued their work. monitoring the boundaries between dimensions and watching for signs of danger. Williams approached her again. "Admiral, what is Protocol 7? Hudson looked at the young officer and saw her own younger self reflected in his face. She remembered when she had first learned about humanity's true role in the galaxy. She remembered the weight of knowledge settling on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. "Protocol 7, she said slowly, means we stop pretending to be ordinary humans. It means we reveal technology that makes our current ships look like wooden boats. It means using weapons that can cut holes in space itself. And if the Council sees us using such technology..." Hudson walked to the main viewing screen and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among those points of light, an ancient entity was stirring from eons of sleep. Somewhere in Council space, innocent people were going about their daily lives, unaware that their continued existence depended on the actions of a human fleet they did not know existed. "Then they will learn the truth," she said. "They will learn that humanity is not just another member of the Galactic Council. They will learn that we are the guardians of reality itself." She turned back to her crew, and her voice became firm and commanding. "All stations, prepare for immediate departure to Sector 7 Alpha. Contact the other Deep Fleet vessels, and inform them that we are implementing Protocol 7, and send a message to the Watcher stations along the barrier. Tell them to increase their vigilance. If we fail to contain this sleeper, we may have more than one ancient entity to deal with." As the massive ship began to turn toward its destination, Hudson reflected on the choice that humanity had made 2 centuries ago. They had chosen to become guardians instead of conquerors. They had chosen to protect instead of exploit. And now that choice was about to be tested in ways that could determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. 6 months later, Ambassador Carl Bennett stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, but this time he was not alone. Next to him stood Fleet Admiral Nick Carter, a man whose uniform carried decorations that no council member had ever seen before. Dr. Helen Brooks, a scientist from the Department of Dimensional Studies, held a small device that would change everything. Captain Ryan Sullivan, whose report from the survey incident had forced this moment, stood ready to support whatever Bennett was about to reveal. The chamber was filled with representatives from all 7 council species. High Counselor Thys sat in her crystal throne, her body flashing with colors that showed she was both curious and concerned. The Vorkan delegation moved their tentacles in patterns that suggested extreme agitation. Even the normally calm Nixari seemed disturbed by the unusual nature of this gathering. "Ambassador Bennett," Thys began, her voice echoing through the chamber, "the Council has voted. We cannot accept humanity's continued secrecy regarding the restricted zones. Our scouts report massive energy disturbances throughout the region. If there are resources or threats in that space, the Council has a right to know." Admiral Carter stepped forward. His gray hair and lined face showed the weight of knowledge that had been kept secret for too long. "High Counselor, with respect, knowledge carries responsibility. Are your species prepared for that burden? What burden could justify such secrecy?" demanded the Vorkan representative, their tentacles writhing with obvious anger. Dr. Brooks activated her device, and the chamber filled with holographic images that made several council members step backward in shock. The images showed vast entities drifting between dimensions, their forms shifting and changing in ways that hurt to look at. Structures appeared that existed in impossible geometric configurations. Energy readings scrolled past that showed reality itself being twisted into new forms. 200 years ago, Dr. Brooks began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. Humanity discovered faster than light travel. Our first experimental ships found pathways through what we call the deep, regions of space where the boundaries between dimensions are thin. What we found there changed us forever. The hologram shifted, showing humanity's first contact with the beings beyond the veil. The images were disturbing, showing entities so advanced that they viewed 3-dimensional space as humans might view a drawing on paper. Some of these beings were helpful, Dr. Brooks continued, sharing technology and knowledge with us. Others were less friendly. We learned that our galaxy exists in a stable bubble of reality, protected by barriers that these entities had established eons ago. But those barriers are not permanent. The chamber erupted in sounds of distress and confusion. Species that had never imagined such things were struggling to understand what they were seeing. Admiral Carter raised his hand for silence. We discovered that certain activities can weaken these barriers. Specific faster-than-light drive frequencies, particular types of energy emissions, even certain patterns of stellar observation can tear holes in the fabric of reality itself. The beings beyond the veil agreed to share their technology with humanity, Dr. Brooks added, but only if we agreed to serve as guardians. Only if we promised to monitor the galaxy and prevent other species from accidentally destroying everything. Guardians of what? Thais demanded, her crystal body flashing bright red. Of you, Captain Sullivan said simply. Of all of us. The Council species have been developing technologies that could, if used carelessly, tear holes in reality itself. Humanity has been monitoring, adjusting, and when necessary, intervening to prevent catastrophic breaches. The protests and demands for proof were immediate and loud. Representatives from different species spoke in their various languages, creating a cacophony of confusion and anger. Dr. Brooks gestured, and the hologram changed to show the current crisis. The image displayed a star system where space itself seemed to be warping and bending. At the center was something that defied description, a presence so alien that the viewing equipment could barely register its existence. This entity has been dormant for 50,000 years, she explained. Its awakening was triggered by a Zeltharian deep space mining operation that unknowingly destabilized a dimensional anchor point. If it fully awakens, it will attempt to convert our entire local stellar region into what it considers a more efficient configuration. Meaning? Thais asked, though her color suggested she already feared the answer. Meaning, approximately 200 star systems would be compressed into a single point of infinite density to serve as a calculation node for the entity's consciousness. The silence in the chamber was complete and terrifying. Admiral Carter broke it with words that carried the weight of 2 centuries of hidden sacrifice. The Deep Fleet is preparing to intervene, but success is not guaranteed. This is why humanity drew its borders so carefully, so deliberately. We are not hiding resources or claiming territory. We are protecting reality itself. Why tell us this now? Asked the Nexari representative, their crystalline voice shaking with what might have been fear. Because, Admiral Carter said heavily, we are going to need your help. The barriers are weakening throughout this sector of the galaxy. The entities beyond the veil are becoming more active. Humanity cannot maintain the watch alone anymore. Bennett stepped forward. The choice is simple. Join us as fellow guardians or watch as the galaxy transforms into something unrecognizable. But why us? Asked a smaller alien from the Kithera delegation. Why not choose races with more advanced technology or greater military power? Dr. Brooks smiled sadly. Because you are not advanced enough to be arrogant. You are not powerful enough to believe you can control forces beyond understanding. The Council races have something that the extinct civilizations lacked: humility. Admiral Carter activated a control on his uniform, and the chamber filled with new images. These showed the true scope of humanity's guardian fleet. Hundreds of massive ships that dwarfed anything in Council space. Stations the size of moons floating in the void between dimensions. Technology that seemed to operate on principles beyond current understanding. For 200 years, Carter said, humanity has stood watch. We have prevented 17 separate dimensional incursions. We have contained 43 awakening entities. We have redirected the expansion of 12 different Council species away from dangerous regions. And we have done it all in secret because we believed you deserved to live in peace. But that time is ending, Bennett added. The threats are growing stronger. The barriers are becoming weaker. And the entities beyond the veil are taking notice of the growth and activity in Council space. Thais stood up from her crystal throne, her body cycling through colors that showed deep thought. If we agreed to become guardians, what would that mean for our people? What would we have to give up? Your innocence, Captain Sullivan said bluntly. Your simple view of the universe. Your belief that the biggest threats come from other physical beings like yourselves. But you would gain something more valuable. What? The knowledge that you are protecting something precious. The understanding that your vigilance keeps entire civilizations safe. The purpose that comes from standing between the light and the darkness. Dr. Brooks deactivated her device and the disturbing images faded away. The choice must be made quickly. Our sensors indicate that the sleeper in Sector 7 Alpha will fully awaken within days. If we cannot contain it, its awakening will trigger a cascade effect that could wake others. And if you fail, asked the Vorkan representative, Admiral Carter's expression became grim. Then the galaxy as we know it will end, not in war or destruction, but in transformation. The entities beyond the veil will reshape our reality according to their needs. Billions of worlds will be converted into something unrecognizable. The chamber was quiet for a long time. Finally, Thys spoke for all the council species. What do you need us to do? Bennett felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he had carried for decades. We need you to understand that the galactic map ends at human space for a reason. We need you to accept that some questions should not be asked, and some territories should not be explored. And we need you to help us stand watch. Together? Thys asked. Together, Admiral Carter confirmed, as guardians of reality itself. Through the crystal walls of the chamber, the stars continued their ancient dance. But now, for the first time in 2 centuries, humanity would not stand guard alone. The council species had chosen to step out of their peaceful existence and into a larger, more dangerous universe. The galactic map would need to be redrawn, but this time it would show the truth. The edge of human space was not a border between territories, but a threshold between the known and the unknowable, between reality and the vast, dangerous possibilities that lay beyond. And for the first time since humanity had discovered the deep, the galaxy's guardians would have allies in their eternal watch against the darkness.